All right, so he's in long sitting. Now what can I do that he's here? More PNF stuff, yes.
We should go through some of that PNF stuff.
Yep. Yep. So he can still do like more pull-ups. Yep. What does he need to be able to do to get dressed? So if I've got him here, okay, that's great that he can hold himself there. But yeah, but now what is he going to do? If he needs to do range of motion with his legs, or he needs to try to pull his pants on, what does he need to be able to do? Okay, so he needs to be able to start letting go. So you need to start working on that control of him being able to hang out here and lifting up one arm, okay, and kind of being able to hang out, and then being able to lift up both arms, because a lot of times it's hard to get socks on with just one hand. You can, but if he can get to the balancing point where he can use both of his hands to thread his pants or whatever, then this is going to be the most functional position for them to do that. Okay, so you have decreasing the upper extremity support that you need, doing self range of motion, so they will get to the point where they can actually start doing their own range of motion. Okay, so how can you do a hamstring stretch sitting here already? What do you need to cue him to do?
Sit up straight.
Yeah, he needs to try to sit up straight, because otherwise is he really stretching his hamstrings if he just collapses down? No, no. So you need to try to get him here if you can, and then teach them to hang there, and then they can even walk out on their elbows a little bit if they need to. Okay, and they'll still get a little bit of a hamstring stretch. Okay, they'll get to the point where they can pull their legs up. So sitting here, you know, you can pull, and your leg doesn't work, but you can pull it up to get some flexion. Okay, you can let it rotate out. So just like this, he's hanging out there, and he's pulling his legs up, and he's letting them come back out. Okay, because he's got his balance, and even if he needed to, he could hold on here and still do his own range of motion. Okay, he can switch hands, grab a hold here, and he can do some dorsiflexion. Okay, so they need to learn to do their own range of motion. If they can do it in long sitting, that's going to be the best spot for them to be able to do it. So if they can balance on long sitting, that's another way for them to do their own self range to help prevent their contractures. Okay.
How do you instruct them on like taking it far enough in the stretch when they can't feel the stretch?
They learn by sight, just
by
knowing, yeah.
Like how far?
Yeah, and then usually as long as they're going through the functional range, you show them what their functional range is. So, you know, if he gets it up here, we want it to be able to come all the way out, so it's resting at the table, and you just tell them what you expect. And this knee should be able to come over top of his hip on the other side.
Do they have to worry about like overstretching, like doing any damage by stretching it too far?
Yeah. That's why you tell them where their end range is. And that's why you don't want to overstretch any of their muscles. They need to be stretched to like the perfect degree, like we talked about with the hamstrings. If they're overstretched, then they don't have that stability that they need even in long sitting because they're too long. But they need to be long enough to get forward, to reach their feet, to get dressed and do what they need to do. Same thing with their other muscles. They use some of them for stability, and they can't be too lax. But you don't want them to be contracted either. So you do have to teach them what their normal range of motion should be. Good question. So then again, weight shifts without upper extremity support. So now they're sitting there. Remember in the video, they had her just trying to sit up kind of where the wall was behind her. You can use the wall if you don't have a wall close to a mat, then, and you don't want to get them on the floor, then you can just stand there. So he's coming this way, going this way, so he's learning to weight shift. Okay, he can start adding in arms to make it harder, so he's doing this and weight shifting. Okay.
If they don't have trunk control, how would you teach weight shifting? Or do you just not?
No, you do. They learn, and I know it sounds odd that they would learn trunk control without having trunk muscles, but they do. They actually learn where to sit, and then they learn how to use their arms to balance. So I've had a lot of T1s and above that just learn that this is where I'm sitting and this is where I'm hanging out. This is where I'm most stable. I'm going to hang out here. And they do. They learn that this is my limits. And that's the thing, is you need to teach them their limits. So if they come over here and they're falling, they know that that's too far outside their limits. So when they're trying to do their range of motion or reach for something, they know that that's not their stable point. Yep. So part of it is teaching them their limits. but you do actually have a lot of control of your weight shift coming from up here. It's not a true weight shift like we think about when we're like, oh, you have to elongate, and that's not what you're really talking about when you're talking about spinal cord. You're talking about being able to functionally reach from the wheelchair, and it's more of this. It's more of your lateral lean than your true weight shift. Okay. And then push-ups, so they should be able to get to the point where they can do this. And long sitting. Okay. And then advanced exercises is they should actually now be able to start scooting. So once they can sit like this and they can do a little push-up, I actually make them start scooting themselves around. Okay? So they should be able to scoot in long sitting too. I mean, you can get very advanced though, so the same functional positions we talked about in PNF, you can start getting them in quadruped. I mean, even if you have to put a ball under their belly to get them in quadruped, you can get them in quadruped. You can get them in tall kneeling. If you remember from the video, he was behind her and he had her in tall kneeling and she was working on the weight shifts when they were down on the mat. You can do any of those functional positions with them. You just have to be able to get them there.